Hello and welcome to Euphoria. Well, we've made quite a few changes to the city layout recently, including the addition of the new town hall in prime position on the main plaza. Whenever we make changes to the city layout, there's an opportunity to change and improve things. Today I want to look at the business district on the right hand side of the Lego city to see what we can do to develop the layout a bit more in this area. There's been quite a few major changes to the city layout recently, due mostly to the creation and introduction of the new town hall. We moved the brick bank and laundrette away from its prime location on the main plaza and placed it in the old town area. We installed the new town hall in its rightful place, facing squarely onto the plaza. We created this new space, or little square, next to the old astronomical clock tower. We moved the pet shop modular building over to this side of the layout, where it fits neatly next to this apartment building. I spent some time recently fixing the side of that building, which is one of my own creations, and now you can't see that at all, but never mind. And we repositioned the Honeydukes sweet shop and created this street in the old town. There's such a lot to do. I'm making a few shorter videos about the changes, although with so much to do I'm not sure they'll be that short. This is the third video about developing the city layout after adding the town hall to the city. In recent videos I showed you the updates to the old town area, where I repaved the new street in the old town and created this little open space or small square that forms part of the old town. And I showed you some changes to the main square called Harmonia Plaza, which included changing the structure of the base plates that it's built on, a change to the pattern in the paving, and other small changes such as moving the bike rack. So in this video I'm going to look at the right hand side of the layout with buildings that form the business district and this little square called Skyline Plaza. On the right hand side of the city is this business district. The business district is centred around this square or plaza in front of this large office building and research institute called the Ensgrave building, and there are a few other buildings around it. This area is a more modern addition to the city and contrasts in character to the more historical and traditional style of buildings in the old town area. On this side of the square is the back of the Sanctum Sanctorum building. I love the style of this building and the front looks great, but the back here is very boring. There's a small passage between the main plaza and the business district, which runs down the side of this building. That's a bit small and cluttered at the moment, so maybe that needs clearing up. Facing onto the square is this large building called the Ansgrave building. This is one of my favourite mocks. It's quite a large building that's 48 studs wide and 5 stories tall. It's an office building and research institute with different labs on each of the floors and offices, meeting rooms and the computer centre on the 2 top floors. There's a whole series of videos about the design and construction of this building on the channel here. On the right hand side of the plaza is this kind of façade building. This was kind of a filler to try out the idea of a façade building in this location, and I don't think it's really a finished building. At the front of the square is this townhouse and apartment building with a cafe on the ground floor. There isn't much room at the back, although there is the rear entrance to the townhouse and the kitchen for the cafe. This is the pet shop half modular building, which is one half of the modular pet shop Lego set. There isn't really much at the back of this building, so the small amount of space at the back could potentially be used for part of the square. At the moment this half base plate is empty, but maybe that could be used as another point of access to the business district. Which leaves us with the space in the centre, which is the square itself. We're going to start by looking at this square, which is called Skyline Plaza. The name came about because of the high-rise buildings around the square. Let's think about how we might improve this square. It only occupies a half base plate, that's 16 by 32 studs, so it isn't very large and there isn't room to do a great deal with it. Really, this square needs to be a bit bigger, but at the moment we're constrained by table space until we can expand the city onto another table. This square has never been properly paved, and that's one of the main things that needs sorting out here. We found when paving the other little square, or open space, in the old town part of the city, that if we push the boundary of the square out onto adjacent base plates, that it increases the apparent size and sense of space. So if we look at the space on the adjacent base plates, we have the pavement in front of the Ansgrave building. There's a small area at the back of the Sanctum Sanctorum building. There's the pavement outside the other office building on the right, and those little bits of space at the back of these buildings. In order to gain that apparent space, I'm going to do the same trick as we did on the main square, and that is to remove the curbstones that provide a visual separation between the base plate for the buildings and the area of the square. That means removing this curbstone along the front of the Ensgrave building and this one at the side of this façade building. For now, I'm going to replace them with plain 2x2 dark bluish grey tiles to provide a continuous area of paving that flows into the little square. While I'm here, I'm just fixing the diamond shape in front of the Ensgrave building, as I've now got some 2x2 triangular tiles in dark bluish grey. This is quite a simple pattern, but it fits nicely outside the entrance to the building. At the back of the Sanctum Sanctorum building, I'm removing the junk that's here, including this dumpster, and paving that area using the same tiles as the other pavements. While I've got this out here, I'll remove the curbstones from the side and tidy up the alley. It's only 5 studs wide, but at least it's now a bit more usable as an access down the side of the building, and the newspaper box fits nicely against the corner angle of the building. I've paved the back of the pet shop building in the same way. I'm not sure we really want a rat here, but I've kept it there for now. So with all those put back, that's the full area of the square now available for use. Let's think about the paving for this square. If we include the area at the back of the Sanctum Sanctorum building on one side and the area in front of the façade building on the other side, the square is 31 studs wide. And if we include the pavement in front of the Ensgrave building at the back and at the back of the pet shop in the front, it's about 42 studs deep. So that's actually a lot bigger than just the 32 by 16 stud base plate that sits in the centre. I want this square to be a bit more interesting than just paving it all in dark bluish grey tiles. But I wasn't sure what to do with the paving for this space, so I ran a poll on the community tab of this YouTube channel. The polls showed a series of design ideas for paving patterns that could be used in Skyline Plaza. We looked at designs with Greek scroll type patterns, with squares leading to checkerboard patterns in different sizes, even circles and diagonal patterns, and those are just the symmetrical or regular ones. For the sake of comparison, they were all made on a 32 by 32 stud base plate, although, as we've just seen, the plaza itself isn't that exact size. So it's a big thank you to those of you who took part in the polls. Let's have a quick look at the polls and the results, and then I'll tell you how we're going to use the results to influence the design of this plaza. As we had lots of ideas for designs, I organised them into a series of polls based around the basic idea of the designs. It's a bit difficult to interpret the results because the different options were presented as different polls. Your views were split pretty evenly across the types of designs, with crosses, squares and scrolls being slightly more popular. And even across the individual designs, it's quite hard to spot a clear winner. but these three designs seem to be slightly ahead. I do have to bear in mind that the area to be paved isn't actually square, so I want a design that can be adapted to fit the space available. So I'm going to go with this option, which can be extended in any direction, and it should still be clear what the design is, even if parts of it are missing or obscured. So, after all that, here I am finally laying out the paving for the plaza and extending it onto the base plates of the adjacent buildings. I've extended the pattern a bit onto the base plate of the Ensgrave building at the back, and although I can't quite complete the squares on the base plate of the Sanctum Sanctorum, it still continues the pattern. With the paving in front of the façade building, it makes a pretty complete looking square. I really like that, and I don't really want to block the view of it, so I'm going to move the blank 16 by 32 base plate next to the apartment building and put the pet shop on the other side. I decided to continue the pattern of paving into that area between the two buildings, and I think that now the plaza in the business district looks much bigger and better than it used to, and that area of the city now also has its own distinctive look, different from the other areas of the city. Next, I'm going to have a quick look at the office building on the right hand side of the square. This was meant to be an office building in the business district to complement the large research institute at the back. But I've never been completely happy with this building, and it's always been a kind of temporary building to try out the idea of a façade building here at the side of the layout. One of the main issues that I have with this building is the roof, where I tried to make these kind of curved structures on the top, which I've never really worked out what they're for. One of my viewers also suggested that the building isn't really big enough to stand on its own next to the much larger building next door. So I'm going to try and make some small improvements to this building without completely rebuilding it. Here I'm making another floor module, the same as the other floor modules that make up this building, which will add 1 story to the height of the building. As you can see, it's only 6 studs deep, which is just enough to give the impression of a larger building, and it's not particularly pretty round the back, and I'm using bricks of lots of different colours. That's because I'm mostly using bricks that I got cheaply from the picker brick wall, but that doesn't really matter as the back will not normally be seen. For the roof, I'm removing those curved pieces, and I'll rebuild the top layer of the roof in grey plates. And I've added a small aircon unit to the roof just to add a bit of interest for the top of the building. So let's see what this slightly taller version of this building looks like back in the business district. Well, there it is. It looks pretty much the same, if slightly taller, and not really much improved, but it is a bit bigger, and I've got rid of those silly curved pieces on the roof. So we'll keep it there for now. If you have any ideas for how to improve this building, please let me know in the comments below. For those of you who've been following along with the channel, or have been looking back at early city updates, you might remember this curious monument. This is the 100 subscriber monument, which was created to commemorate the channel reaching 100 subscribers. That was an important point in the channel's development, because at 100 subscribers, YouTube allowed us to give the channel a proper name and handle. The form of this monument was originally inspired by a sculpture in Athens entitled Theseus, although the design developed so that on each side of the monument there are one or two abstract representations of faces. The monument was originally placed in the main plaza, but it wasn't that popular there. I think it was a bit too modern for that quite traditional location. But as we are now approaching 1,000 subscribers, and don't forget to subscribe if you haven't already, I think this monument deserves a place back in the city. So after a small refurbishment, this monument is going to be placed in the new square, Skyline Plaza, where I'm hopeful that it'll be more in keeping with the more modern buildings in that area of the city. It should go rather neatly in the centre of the new plaza. Do let me know what you think of this monument in its new location. Okay, there are just a couple of finishing touches to complete this update. Firstly, we need some sort of street lighting for the new plaza and around the buildings. So we're going to add to the plaza some of the standard street lamps used in my Lego city. These are the ones I use for my streets. They're just a slight modification to the standard white street lamps that you normally get with the Lego modular buildings. I think 4 will do to light this area, so we can place them symmetrically around the centre of the new plaza. Secondly, it would be good to put back the city map that shows minifigs where they are in the city. That can go over on this side against the back wall of the Sanctum building, so it doesn't get in the way too much. And now all that's finished, we can let the minifigs back in to use the refurbished square and access the buildings, alleyways and open spaces in this part of town. So that's all the changes to the business district area of the city for the moment. We've cleared things up a bit in Skyline Plaza so that the space is rather more usable. We changed the pattern of paving and removed the curbstones from the adjoining base plates so that there's a better sense of continuity throughout the plaza and the space appears to be more cohesive and attractive. We moved the pet shop over a bit so that we have a more direct access to the plaza. The façade building got a minor upgrade just to make it a bit larger and remodel the roof. And we've seen the possibly controversial return of the 100 subscriber monument. These are not massive changes, but I hope you agree they're all improvements to this area of the city, and they give this area its own distinctive look and feel. Let me know what you think about these changes. Now I've used all the space on my table, so I'm not sure what we'll be doing next. We either need to extend the city onto another table or change some of the buildings already in the city. There are plenty of standard modular buildings that don't yet make an appearance in the city, or of course I could continue to develop my own designs. Let me know what you think should be the next steps for the city in the comments below. Don't forget to support the channel by hitting that like button and use the bell button to be notified of new videos, and subscribe to the channel to see more about my mocks, other builds and ideas, and updates on my LEGO City.